Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order our Board of Selectmen regular meeting tonight, Thursday, April 1st, 2021. If we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would now ask if anyone wants to present any potential changes or additions to the agenda.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
If nobody else has any, I would request that the selectmen consider adding the resignation of Fire Chief Nick Wallach. I didn't get his letter till earlier in this week, so it wasn't on the agenda.
Oh,
And
okay.
we'll do something a little bit more ceremonial when the time is right. But I think if we're going to appoint a new chief tonight, I think it would be appropriate to accept his resignation with regret. And if we could add that under appointments and resignations, probably 6A1, and then to do the other one 6A2, if that works.
To me, that does, and it makes sense. Does anybody have any issues with that? Hearing none, I think we're fine. So let me just. It's the only thing I can't multitask. If I'm writing, I can't multitask when I'm doing that. I don't know why. Everything else I can multitask. Okay, perfect. Okay. Since no one had any issues with that, our next section would be our public
Excuse me,
comment.
Dan?
Yes.
In our procedures, didn't we say that we would take a vote on something like that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was asking if anybody had any issues, but we'll do a vote. So going across, I see Gail.
Aye.
Okay, coming back, Mark. And what this is, Mark, would be to add Nick Wallach's resignation as fire chief to be done before the appointment of the new fire chief. Mark?
Aye to that, Chairman.
I'm sorry, yes?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
John, are you there?
I am here. Aye.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yes, aye.
Okay, and myself, aye. So that carries. So we will do that under 6A1 and then the appointment 6A2. Our next section would be our public comment. And I usually turn the floor over to Donna, so she can let people know how, if they do wish to do comments, the process.
Sure, good evening. We have a public comment section at the beginning and also at the end of the meeting. And if anybody would like to make a public comment, if you could just write your name in the chat bubble and you will be recognized. So if anybody has a public comment, just let us know. Are there anyone out there at this time that would like to make a public comment? Nothing right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Moving on, our next
Chairman?
section. Yes.
Just before we get into the meat of the meeting, a constituent asked me whether we follow this Board of Selectmen and the selectmen themselves follow the charter ethics section, the conflict of interest. And I told him, I don't have conflicts of interest. I don't get money from the town or anything like that, nor will I ever. But I bring it up because they asked me to bring it up as a question.
Okay. Again, that is something that should have been done as additions or changes to the agenda, but
a question. It's not an agenda item.
Okay. Well,
It seems like a simple yes, right? We follow the charter.
yes. And again, everybody who does collect any kind of compensation from the town, and a perfect example, I am the deputy fire marshal. So I work under the auspices of the fire marshal. He is my boss in relation to fire marshal activities. And Professional Electric, a company that I work for, does electrical work for the town of Hebron. And they have won open bid and have been appointed as the town's electrical contractor. And that was all done through a bid process.
Okay, I mean, I have not, I mean, I did go
I'm
over.
assuming that that's what somebody wanted to know.
I think they were wondering whether that should be in the minutes of meetings in which the budget was discussed, or that if it impacted any meeting, because in the charter, I think if somebody has a potential conflict of interest, it doesn't necessarily mean they can't participate, but it has to be reported. And it has to be reported also to the town clerk, I think. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on that.
At this point, I'm not sure what else to say.
It would seem that that's part one of a two-part question. So you didn't get any additional context, John? I mean, it seemed like they're asking a question, they expect an answer, but then there's a follow-up or a concern that they wanted to delve into deeper. Was there any additional context that we should be thinking about, or was that not shared with you?
I think they're saying that they should be reported, and that we should follow the charter's procedures and processes, and that perhaps we aren't.
Right, yeah, and so if we are, if they think we're not, then that's very interested to know in what context. So maybe there's something we're not aware of, or something that we should discuss further. But it sounded like there was more to it, and maybe it just wasn't shared at this point. But
I don't know that there was more to it, except for the fact that the charter is very specific about what has to be done with conflicts of interest, and they have to be reported to the public.
oh, okay.
Minutes of meetings.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Without any other further context, nothing else to say. So moving on, the good to know. Andy, do we have anything for good to know?
We do not have anybody tonight for good to know.
Okay, then our next would be appointments and resignations. And you were saying that you did receive a letter?
Yeah, so I apologize for the confusion if there's any. Chief Nick Wallach was gracious enough to stay on. If you remember, he did submit a letter prior to COVID as a resignation letter, but then when COVID or the pandemic hit, he was gracious enough to stay on through that process. And now, finally, this week, earlier in the week, he sent me over an official letter of resignation. It's only appropriate if the Board of Selectmen agree that we act on that now before we appoint the new fire chief to keep it clean.
Yes.
We do have something for his years of service. It just was not available for tonight's meeting, so we will be visiting with Nick again, but I just wanted to make it clean, and I appreciate the Board of Selectmen adding us to the agenda. I think you can come up with a motion that's pretty cut and dry, but before we do that, as the town manager of Hebron, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen of Hebron, I'd like to thank Nick Wallach for his years of service and dedicated service as a fireman, and then also the Hebron's fire chief for over 8 years. He's gone down and above, and he's served this community very well, and he deserves recognition for that. So I, for one, appreciate that, and I'm sure the Board of Selectmen do as well. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. I myself have the pleasure, actually, I had the pleasure of being in the fire department when Nick first came on board. And sadly, I cannot tell you how many years ago that was, but it was a few. And I've seen Nick grow within the fire service and go up through the ranks as a firefighter, then as an instructor, then as a chief, involved with hazmat, both through his earlier life with the flooring company. Sorry, I can't think of the name of it, and all the way up through to being our chief for a number of years. He's seen, I would attest that he has seen probably many changes in the fire service, and I'm proud and honored to have known Nick and to have worked with Nick, both as a firefighter, as a chief officer, and then as a town elected official. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Nick, thank you. I've been on had a lot of scenes with you, and your dedication and professionalism is much appreciated. I see a lot of firefighters on tonight. I imagine they're here to support you. I'm happy to see that. And to all you firefighters, volunteers, and paid, I feel a lot safer in this community knowing all you guys are out here. And I'm so thankful that you give of yourselves and your talents to make this town a better place. And the same goes for you too, Nick. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion that we, the Hebron Board of Selectmen, accept with regret the resignation of Nick Wallach III as fire chief. Wish him well on his future endeavors, knowing that he is still being and remaining part of the fire department family, working with the state on up at the fire school up in Windsor Locks. I thank you for the many years of service, and as I say, I make the motion that we accept your resignation with regret, but hoping that as you grow within the fire service ranks, it's good to know that you will still be there.
Mr. Wallach, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your support in the fire department and myself. It's been a pleasure to work with everybody, and Andy and Elaine at the town hall, and Donna. It's been a pleasure.
Without further ado, on the motion, John, your vote.
John Collins, aye.
Gail,
Gail Richmond, aye.
Peter,
Thank you, Chief. Peter Casper, aye.
Mark,
Mark Rivera, aye.
and myself, Dan Larson, aye. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you again. Mr. Chairman, next, so that leads us into the other part of 6A, the fire chief appointment. So Chief Wallach now has resigned his position as fire chief. After a thorough recruitment and interview process, the town manager is recommending that Peter Starkle be appointed as fire chief. Mr. Starkle will be introduced at the meeting. I feel it's only appropriate that I turn it over to Nick Wallach, who sat on the panel, and it's been a custom in Hebron to always have the fire chief take part in his predecessor. So without further ado, I'm going to let Nick introduce him. We're going to give you a bio. We're going to tell you about the process we went through and why he was the successful candidate. Take it away, Nick.
Thank you, Andy. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
With my mask on? Yes? Okay. We embarked on a search for a new fire chief many weeks ago. What we did was we advertised the part-time chief's position in a number of venues. Primarily, we used the listserv, which is an email distribution network from the Connecticut Fire Academy in Windsor Locks. It covers the state of Connecticut. You all approved the job description, and we advertised the position also in the River East. We had 10 applicants apply from all over the state of Connecticut. We narrowed it down to 3 that were selected for an interview. 3 good candidates were interviewed, and that was in the month of March. We used standardized questions for the 3 applicants, and a lot of focus was based on availability and what the priorities were for the particular candidate. The selection was made to offer the position to Peter Starkel, a person that's local in our next town of Columbia. And the committee was myself, Andy, and Fire Chief Chip Jordan from Mansfield Fire Department. And the reason we use Chip Jordan is in the Fire Chiefs Association and also in the TN Dispatch, Talon County Dispatch, we're very active in helping each other out with these job interviews. I've done many of them myself. I've known Peter Starkel for over 20 years. He's a firefighter EMT. He's also an instructor with me at Eastern Connecticut Fire School. Globally, he's the Connecticut director for the New England Association of Fire Chiefs. He's chaired a committee that was very important to the town of Hebron, and that's to develop a paramedic advisory board to negotiate paramedic rates and operational issues that we had with paramedic service out of Wyndham Hospital. He's also the deputy fire coordinator for the Talon County TN Dispatch Center. He's been involved with emergency services as an advisor for the insurance company for many, many years. He's been in the fire service for 37 years and still active. He has Fire Officer 1 from many, many years ago. And he has a list of many training courses, probably 20 to 25 training courses, certainly more than I have, and certificates and certifications accordingly. So we felt that Peter was the best suited candidate for the job, and he was offered the position. Does anybody have any questions?
Nick, could you just touch on the years of already acting as a chief and a deputy chief? Maybe Peter can help you with that.
Help him, Peter.
Yep. Yep. So I served as 6 years as a deputy chief and a little over 11 years as chief of a department. So I have a total of 17 years chief officer experience.
And it was a unanimous decision, even though we had great candidates. It was unanimous on the #1 pick.
Yes. Yes, we feel that Peter will fit in very well. Again, I've known him for many years. I worked with him on scenes, unfortunately fatal scenes and some fire, so on and so forth. And we worked very well together and without issues. Any other questions?
I would like to make a comment. I've had both the privilege and the honor of knowing Pete for, God, 30, well, since I got in the fire service back in, what, 81, I guess. I've known him both professionally back when he was doing insurance, as well as through the Columbia Fire Department, with, again, many multiple mutual aids. We are very honored, I believe, to have such a fine person to carry on the chief's traditions and the chief responsibilities in our community. And I think it's going to be a perfect fit myself. So I thank you.
Peter has a business background being in insurance, so we've had many conversations about different things in the fire service having to do with the business side of the equation.
And again, I feel that is so important because so much of the fire chief roles and responsibilities are business oriented, whether it's budgeting, insurance, it just, that whole gambit of knowledge is such a plus. The majority of the job is not spent out in the field doing actual emergency scenes. The majority of the job is spent behind the scenes, taking care of all the day-to-day things that come in. And here again, we're lucky to have an individual that has that background experience. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
So I think I met you, Mr. Starkle, at our emergency meeting last year. Is that this is
Yeah.
John Collins?
Yep.
And I was very impressed with you, actually. I mean, I thought you're fantastic. I don't think there was any information. Was there any information in our packet about Mr. Starkle? No.
Nope.
No. Unfortunately, so I did a Google search, and the first thing that came up, and I have to ask you about this, is there was some sort of assault arrest last year. Was that you?
Yeah.
And
That was vetted through the hiring process, and we did a background check with the police, and we were satisfied with the results of that.
That's nice, but I'm going to be voting on this, so I'd like Mr. Starkle to tell what happened. Are there charges still out?
Excuse me. So as I had a lengthy conversation with Mr. Tierney regarding this. There was an incident at my residence involving myself and some family members. There are no charges on my record. Me and my family were referred to family services for some educational sessions and some counseling. And, I've taken those courses, and I don't want to get into too many details, but I have been involved in personal counseling for quite some time, and again, it was an unfortunate incident, but my family and I and we addressed it, and we put that behind us, and
I'm done.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure Mr. Starkle is a good candidate. I'm sure he's a great person. My problem here is, again, with the information that this town manager provides to the Board of Selectmen and not preparing us for important decisions. This should have been brought up to us at least in executive session so that we could get that kind of information. It's not just the hiring committee. I mean, we're not a rubber stamp. That is like the number one signal I am sending to the community is that we're expected to be a rubber stamp to this town manager. And again, we're getting this candidate who's, I think this is unfair to you, Mr. Starkle. We should have got the information before. But it's not. This is not good process. I just.
Okay. Any other comment? Okay, we have a motion. I will read it. We'll continue discussion and then do a vote. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen confirm the town manager's appointment of Peter Starkell as fire chief effective April 1st, 2021, in accordance with the terms set forth by the town manager in the offer of employment. Any further discussion?
I'd like to table it. I move to table the motion until we get more information.
Is there a second for tabling the motion? Hearing none, it fails. All in favor, signify by saying aye. John?
John, I have to say no. I vote no. John Collins.
Gail,
Gail Richmond, aye.
Peter,
Peter Casper, aye.
Mark. You're on mute, Mark.
Mark Rivera, aye.
And myself, aye. Motion carries.
Thank you
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Tarko. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
You
it.
are welcome.
He has a statement that I'd like to make and associated with his appointment, if you would.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Chief Larson. Appreciate the kind words. Actually, Chief Larson was an instructor of mine back in the day. Not to date you, but I'd like to thank Chief Larson, members of the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and Chief Wallach. Absolutely. So I've aspired and trained myself for over 35 years for the opportunity to lead a very professional and reputable and always emerging entity such as the Hebron Fire Department. I genuinely enjoy working with and serving the public, and it will be an honor and a privilege to selflessly serve the town of Hebron, the residents, and the dedicated professionals of the Hebron Fire Department. And they truly are a spectacular bunch of people. I'm hitting the ground running. I'm working tomorrow with Chief Wallach, and we're already going to start going over current and upcoming fiscal year budgets, as well as looking at some priorities for our command staff. So we're hitting the ground running and looking very forward to it. And I just wanted to thank you again, and I look forward to a very successful partnership with you all and the town of Hebron. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be heard just for 2 seconds here. If this were the private sector and we were hiring somebody of this importance or any importance, the decision makers would be getting information so that they could make their decisions. They would be provided that information. We were not provided that information. In fact, we wouldn't know about it. I don't know if anybody else knew about it. I didn't know about it unless we did our own investigation. I just Googled it, just now. I'm not paid. Most of the people of this board are not paid to do this work. We expect support. We expect some sort of, respect. This was not respectful of the board by the town manager to say, well, it's the committee. The committee, gave us, vetted this and approved it. Okay, we take that into consideration. But we need all the information, and we were not given that information. And it's an embarrassment. I hope it doesn't happen again, but it will. I know it will. But it's not professional. It wouldn't happen in the private sector. Why does it happen here?
Duly noted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
on these appointments, this is how it's been done in the past. It's always been vetted. It's in the charter that I recommend you guys confirm after the vetting process. If there's more information that anybody wants, we don't withhold that. But that was personal information. We put that through the channels. We looked into it and it came back sufficient. But if that's something that in the future they want, I'm willing to do whatever you guys want.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, that just shows a complete misunderstanding of Mr. Tierney's job. We are
4 to 1 vote.
excuse me, sir. We are the supervising board. We set policy. What's that? What did you say?
4 to 1 vote. Apparently they don't feel the same way.
Could you rule him out of order, please?
Anyway,
Anyways.
continue, John. and then,
Anyways, the point is here, we decide, we 5 members were elected to decide. And if we're not given all of the information, then our decisions are imperfect and we're not doing our duty to the public. I don't rely on Mr. Tierney. I rely on my own judgment. I need all of the information. Now, if he comes with a vetting process and a committee that approves this person, well, I'll take that into consideration. That doesn't mean that he hides information from the board. And I think this man is probably a very fine person and he's going to be a very fine fire marshal or fire chief. But the duty of the town manager is to this board. And he needs to give us the information. He is not dictator. We don't rubber stamp his decisions. We critically evaluate them. And he's not doing his job.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mark.
would it be sufficient to say that a background check was conducted? The police determined that his record wouldn't impact his employment, and he satisfied the court for whatever his requirements were, and nobody on the board is qualified to do a background check. I basically recused myself from that, and other police officers did it, and I find that if they had any concerns, they would have brought them up to Mr. Tierney, and they didn't. So Mr. Tierney's acting on the police background investigation.
Thank you, Mark.
And I concur with that. And being both within the fire department and knowing the investigations that are done, not only, of course, on town employees, but on all fire department and emergency response personnel, and the background checks done by the state police. If they're happy, I'm happy.
Mr. Chairman, every employer does a background check. It doesn't require, a police officer to do it. Everybody in the private sector does a background check, and that would have come up, and that would have been a consideration. And we would have considered where they are in the court and the circumstances for sure. But nobody would have rubber stamped it and said, well, the police say it's okay. Nobody would have done that. And that is, I think, a lot of the board members have not worked in the private sector. That this is, public sector is their only experience is a huge problem, because a background check would have been for anybody, for an entry level position, not just such an important position for the town. It would have been a necessary, and everybody would have considered it. So, I don't agree with Mr. Rivera. I don't think his approach is right. And I think this is very serious. Like I said, I think it's a problem that we have now. I won't rubber stamp decisions. I want information. I'll make my own decision. And we just don't get information. That's the problem here.
Well, one last comment, Mr. Chairman. Nobody on this board has the ability to fingerprint somebody, whether it's to be accepted as an employee at RAM or Hebron, and the police conduct a background investigation, and they can get information that no employer can get, and they're asked to make a determination if a person has a clean record, if they've been convicted. There's a lot of information that the public can't get. So I have done it in the past for other individuals. I didn't do it for this individual because of a conflict of interest, but the state police did it. So, John, you're inaccurate in saying that.
No, I'm not inaccurate, Mark. I don't care about your police.
Okay.
I don't care about your background check. What I care about is a background check that any employer would
Mr.
get.
Larson, can we move the meeting forward?
Yes.
Because we seem to be getting into it, an item that is not on the agenda.
Correct. We need to move forward. We have heard your concerns,
Point of
John.
order, Mr. Chairman, this is on the agenda. the appointment of the police chief, of fire chief is on the
And
agenda.
it has been made, and it is
And it's
over,
been
and we are
passed.
moving on. Town managers report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief. So we're still in union negotiations with the town employees, the parks, the public works, and the supervisors. We're hoping to wrap all those up very soon, and we'll bring that information to you. That will be an executive session, and we'll be looking for the selectmen to ratify those when they're ready. Also, as I think you guys had a conversation prior to the meeting with Mel, we finally got that AHM agreement ratified, which we worked on for months. So that's finally off the plate. So that's good for the towns and AHM. As you know, there was quite a lengthy process on getting this fire chief and interviewed and the panel together and vetting that process. That just got approved. Thank you. We're working with the budget updates with the Ram School with their new numbers. We're also working with the state budget. The state budget won't be done until April 23rd, so they still have some moving targets in there. There'll be some maybe new numbers for Tuesday night. We're looking to reopen the town office buildings on Monday, the Monday after Easter. We're not looking to open the senior center. In conjunction with that, we're going to try to be in concert with the other senior centers that are in the health district. And they're going to come up with a plan on how to open those together. The Green Committee is looking to do an Earth Day function. That's the weekend after Earth Day. It's on the 24th and the 25th. They're going to have people go out and individually try to attack some of the areas. So they'll be working. You'll be hearing more about that. We're working with Kathy Ostin along with Joe Courtney's office on some of this federal rescue funds. Unfortunately, they want a deadline or application submitted by next Friday. That's really tight turnaround times. We don't, have time to figure out what projects we're going to submit. It's in the early stages. It doesn't mean that they're going to get approved, but we want to at least get our name in the hat. So we'll be sending out emails and letting you know any project that we're talking about would be something that the Board of Selectmen have already approved, like possibly the bridge over behind the library, things of that nature, things that are ready to go. But I've never seen it so loose. They're not telling you how much of a match. They're not telling you a monetary figure. They're saying from millions to $100,000 projects. We're trying to get more information, but it's got to be done and submitted by next Friday. So that's a lot of work to get done. We're working again on a grant for the small cities. That would be for the Rifkin property on that conceptual plan that was approved. We're hoping to get some monies to start putting some of the infrastructure in there, utilities, possibly entrances from the senior center into that property. So we're going to be applying for a grant. That'll be coming in front of the board. And of course, Chatham Health District, we had a meeting earlier this week. The COVID numbers are creeping back up. We had that meeting on Tuesday, so they're still pretty concerned. There's still a lot of COVID out there. And that was the topic of that meeting. So just to make you aware, that's all I had for tonight.
Okay. That brings us, yes, I'm sorry.
The town manager's office sent out some information about the $45,000 that was rejected by the Board of Selectmen in the last budget for a piece of equipment. Policy was set and by the Board of Selectmen to not fund that piece of equipment. And then we just found out through willy-nilly, just because of a different argument that the town manager was making, didn't make sense, that piece of equipment was funded using other monies in the budget. Is that true?
Your total statement's not accurate, but you were present through that process. I can tell you what my vision what took place. So the town was looking to buy a bucket truck quickly, and they funded it over the years. It came back to the Board of Selectmen that he couldn't find a used bucket truck. So he needed another $45,000 to finish out possible approval for a new bucket truck. In doing the budget process, once the town manager turned the budget over to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen asked to have the budget reduced and asked where it could be reduced. We removed the bridge and we withdrew the $45,000 that was being requested. But I said I could find that. Like this time of year, you realize when winter's over, we had a surplus in the existing year's budget, and it was approved through the Board of Finance to use that monies to finalize the purchase of that bucket truck. So we were able to take that out of the CIP for the future budget. That's what happened.
My recollection is that we were looking for savings and that we didn't fund that. And that was the policy of the board. I don't recall saying, go find it in another part of the budget. That wouldn't make any sense. That would not make any sense. Can you find the minutes for that particular and send them to me, please?
If that's the wishes of the board, that's what I'll do.
Members? I mean, if we never, we can find, we'll try to find the minutes, but we have always figured that, especially if there was money put aside for a purchase, we did not add the 45 in last year to give that item the whole funding, but it was never said not to buy it if they could find monies elsewhere. This is, this is good leadership. This is part of finding ways to keep the town rolling. And when you look at the vast number of dead and dying trees, stuff has to be taken care of. Otherwise, we're going to end up in more lawsuits with trees coming down. And thankfully, we were not found liable. But there are literally thousands, if not more, dead trees in and around Hebron and the surrounding communities that are going to pose safety hazards. And we have a responsibility to try to mitigate those safety hazards whenever possible. And by the town utilizing existing dollars to get a piece of equipment that already had the bulk of the money put aside, I think is very good planning.
But it's not really, Peter Casper, it's not really a question about whether or not we need the truck. It's really a budget process question, which I think I'm hearing specific to what the Board of Finance then approved. So it's not really about, I'm not hearing that it's, as far as I'm concerned, every piece of equipment that the town needs, at some point, we got to figure out how to get. So it's really about, John, your question is really about the process, the budget related process, I think. And that, so I'm hearing, Andy, that was specific to the Board of Finance's approval of that transfer. Am I understanding that correctly?
What we did was, you just did it with the fire marshal vehicle. We took money out of an approved budget or the undesignated fund balance. I think everybody here was present when that happened. It wasn't done in secret. We cut the CIP budget and we found a way to do that. The way I did the bucket truck was you needed an additional $45,000 to make the purchase. I went back to the Board of Finance, asked for the monies in the approved budget that was surplus left over for the winter. And with the approval of that, I was able to withdraw that request in the budget that was moving forward. That's what was done. That's legal. No process was not violated. The reason we sent that information out was we were trying to be informative to Selectman Collins when he asked the question during the budget meeting. The next morning, we sent that to him to supply him with the information that he asked. That's why we sent that to you.
Thank you. I know you repeated yourself, but thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, a point of order. Mr. Leitner is not part of this board. Mr. Chairman, actually, the information was sent to me because the town manager was making the argument during the budget meeting that the Board of Selectmen kept reducing the CIP budget, and that was affecting their plan, and it was, it was a problem. So what we found out was that In fact, no, yellow metal dollars were reduced in CIP last year. There was $45,000 that was taken out, but then was put back again. And it was a sleight of hand here because the Board of Selectmen made that policy decision. It was a policy decision to reduce the budget. And nobody said, go ahead and put it back in sometime. The whole point was to come up with a more responsible budget. And so to me, this is an act of insubordination. I mean, what else is it? I didn't know about it. Nobody let me know about it. So,
Mr. Chairman, this is Mal speaking for the Board of Finance.
point of order, I don't think we need to hear from Mr.
I
Wagner.
can recognize him. Go ahead, Mel. Thank you.
I object. You'll have to vote on it. I object. He's a non-member. I object. Point of order. You need to vote on it.
All you want, but you approved this.
I know he did.
Excuse me. You approved it at the end of the year last year when you voted to approve the transfer. That was a legitimate transfer and you approved it. So,
Mr. Chairman, when a non-member speaks, if a member, if a point of order, if a non-member speaks,
table him.
he is not allowed to speak if a member objects. You have to vote on it.
That's not in the charter.
It's in Robert's Rules of Order, and that's part of our rules.
Okay.
I can speak.
It's in our procedures, Mal, so we should take a vote to allow him to speak.
Right.
All in favor of allowing Mel to speak? Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
John?
No.
Myself, aye. Go ahead, Mel.
Well, I made my point. John
Yep.
approved this, whether he realizes it or he doesn't realize it. This is done daily. This is the town manager's job, is to use money that's approved by the voters. And by the way, not only was the money approved by the voters, but the bucket truck was approved by the voters twice in 2 different referendums when partial funding was made. So this was well within the powers of the town manager. It was carried forward in documentation in a transfer, and the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved it, as did the Board of Finance. Thank
Mr. Chairman, part of the town manager's job is to educate and to enlighten the selectmen. This is done in backdoor. We all know it was done backdoor. And I object to it.
I object to
Your
that.
objection is well noted. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, may I please? I'm not even going to talk to that. But it's very apparent that Selectman Collins is going to be critical on every issue, no matter what we do moving forward. I wish we could meet back in public and in person, because maybe you'd have a different attitude, because this is ludicrous. I didn't do anything backdoor or underhandedly, and I take offense to those kind of comments. We have a policy and procedure in place that you have to be respectful. Those are not respectful comments. If these continue, I will leave this meeting and you'll have a conversation with an attorney.
Thank you. Let's move on, please. Old business, our update on the COVID-19 long-term recovery.
Yes, in your packet under item 8A, it's an update on the long-term recovery. So I stated earlier in the town manager's report, a lot of it overlaps, but that's what we've been working on. So we had a staff meeting. We had a member with the Chatham Health District amongst us to make sure what we're doing is approved. So we plan on opening the town buildings. There'll be signage on what people need to do to enter those buildings. And we hope everybody follows those, because if they don't, then we'll have to revert back to keeping both the public and the employees safe. So we're going to try it. Hopefully it works. As I stated earlier, the senior center is not going to follow that right now because of the age and the tightness of that facility. And I think Mark will speak to it under liaisons, but the kids went back to school this past Monday to fully in school. So that's what I have on that.
Okay. I did get out of Commission on Fire Prevention and Control. I get virtually updates basically daily Since yesterday, COVID-19 cases are up by 832 people. The tests that were done for COVID-19 were 22,237 with a daily positivity rate of 3.74. Hospitalizations, the good news there is they are down by 5, but there was one more person that had passed due to the COVID-19. And the town of Hebron still, as far as I know, on the orange alert, which is one step down from red. One of my big fears that, and I've stated it before, that as more and more businesses are allowed to reopen and hopefully get back to normalcy, I fully expected these rates to go up, and I'm very concerned. I'm glad that we are opening the town halls, but at the same time, I'm also very concerned of the safety and well-being of all of our town employees. I would just be a lot happier when I could see a daily positivity rate down around the 2% and have it maintain that. I'm just concerned, health-wise, being a past EMT, whatever. I'm just concerned, and I don't want our town staff to be exposed, and I don't want our town staff to expose others. So it's a very fine-edged sword, and I think we have to be very, very vigilant in keeping track of the numbers and staying in touch. And I know you're doing that with Chatham Health.
Yes, he anticipates Hebron going back into the red. To quote him, he states there's still a lot of COVID out there. Even though people are getting vaccinated, we still have to be cautious. And the numbers speak for themselves, and the submittals to the hospital speak for themselves. So when I wrote this for the packet a week ago, the numbers were better than what they are now. And I think they're still continuing to go up, but I don't have a crystal ball. This next.
Moving on would be the review of the emergency declaration.
Yeah, that's what I was just speaking to. So it's up to, that's an executive order. That's something that the chairman of the board of selectmen, as the town attorney stated, along with the town manager, can do. But for transparency and giving everybody's opinion, we've always brought it to the full board for a vote. I think that's still the prerogative. That's up to you, Mr. Chairman, on how you want to proceed with that.
At this point, I would like to keep this as we are working right now under the emergency declaration system and review it the 15th. I would love to be able to say that yes, we will be able to terminate on the 20th, but what's the rest of the feeling of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, since Mr. Tierney is threatened to sue the board, I think I think it's put a chill on any kind of discussion or that we can have about anything.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I didn't threaten to sue the board. I threatened to sue one individual who was not being respectful and following the protocols that all the selectmen agreed to when they got elected and they were formed. I'm trying to do that as best I can. He's going to be critical, and he makes statements that I'm doing underhanded or back behind the scenes things. That's not appropriate. And I'm going to call anybody out that does that. That's not fair. I don't do that to any of you. I expect the same respect. Respect is earned. And if he's unhappy with my performance, we just had evaluation. It was 4-1. Most of the votes are 4-1. He doesn't like my management style, and that's his opinion, but he can't be disrespectful to me. And the only recourse I have is what I used.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I always said what you
Yes.
did.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
The floor to Mark. Mark, yes, please.
I would just like to make a general comment about these meetings. these meetings are not critiques of individuals. We're not here to completely discuss personnel matters every night, and every issue that comes up is not a critique of a person, of an individual. If we're going to have a personnel conversation about anybody, let's go into executive session. We shouldn't be talking about all these things. This is not part of our town business here to insult people, to find fault with people. If we think there's some kind of impropriety, we'll go into executive session and we'll examine it. This is not, shouldn't be an ongoing thing or theme that we engage in every meeting.
Okay, and I agree. Let us please
Yes,
stay with
I
the
agree.
business at hand. Let us please stay with the business at hand. I'm interested in knowing, at this point, we're talking about the town of Hebron emergency declaration. Do we make a vote on it tonight to terminate it as of April 20th? Or do we table this and do it the 15th? And I will read the resolution and then we can open it for discussion. I'm interested in what everybody's input is. So I will read it. Be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen concurs with the recommendation of the town manager to terminate the town of Hebron's emergency declaration effective April 20th, 2021. I'm opening it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Gail.
I would like to table it till the 15th. I was all for terminating it on the 20th, but things are very fluid out there, and I'm reading numbers that I don't like, and expectations are that it will continue to go up, so we may need it. We can discuss it again on the 15th.
Other comments, please.
Mr. Chairman,
I concur. I concur with Gail, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mark. John, you were,
yeah, so according to the town attorney, we don't really have any power over this. It's up to the chairman of the board and the town manager to invoke this and to revoke the emergency declaration. It's not an ordinance, it's not anything. As you know, I don't think it does anything except for demean our democracy. I don't know why the town's not open. Walmart's been open the entire, year. The post office has been open. XL Mark is open. It's always open. I don't know what the town is actually doing that affects citizens on an emergency basis. I don't know anybody that thinks that the town has done anything, except for have that sign that says "wash your hands." So I don't really understand why we have it. As I said again, I think it demeans our democracy, and hopefully my comments, hopefully Mr. Tierney won't sue me for these comments, but I just don't think it's necessary.
That's not called for.
Dan,
okay. Yes, Peter.
I'm probably a little different in that I've always seen this as something that I lean towards Andy to decide if he thinks it's something that's in the best interest of the town to have that authority. And so I would support his recommendation. We can always change that, but I think it's really under the purview of the town manager to provide me with the best information on whether or not this is necessary to either be revoked or whatever, in this case, revoked. So that's where I am. So I'm not quite in agreement, but I'll support. Obviously, that's just my opinion. I don't vote, but that's my opinion. I would defer to the recommendation of the town manager as something that he needs or doesn't need.
I thank you. And as I say, I wanted to hear everybody's input. One of the differences that we as town staff, we have very, very limited personnel. And we already had at least one or two incidences where we had one person that tested positive, which adversely affected an entire portion of our town staff. At this point in time, I believe, and I could be wrong, that the majority, if not all town staff, have now gotten their second dose of the vaccine. I don't know what they got, if they, what style or what type they got, but it does not mean that you cannot get COVID. It does not mean that you cannot spread COVID. There are some people that think that once they have the vaccine, they're bulletproof. That is not the case. It is supposed to make a much lesser degree of severity if you have had the vaccines and then you get this virus. But as I say, with so few people in the town hall, one instance, before was able to virtually decimate the entire area within the town hall structure. And that's what I think we're trying to avoid. Andy, I saw your hand up. Did you have to say?
Yeah, just very quickly, we don't have any depth. We did it to keep the town's business running, the tax collection, assessors, grand list. If we were to get sick, we wouldn't be able to operate. So we were able to perform these duties for the public. Even though the building was closed, we didn't turn anybody away. We did the permits, we did the vital records, we collected the taxes. So the motto was, until everybody were to get at least vaccinated, we feel more comfortable that it wouldn't decimate the operations of the town. That was the sole reason.
So, Mr. Chairman, just a question. The
Yes,
town manager?
yes, sir.
So we've had this emergency declaration for a year. Can you tell me one instance where you couldn't get a hold of the Board of Selectmen, or that we couldn't have one decision in which this emergency declaration was necessary, in which you couldn't get a hold of a quorum of the Board of Selectmen?
Never had to try doing that. So I don't have an answer. I never tried to do that, and I don't.
Well, it's not necessary, basically what you're saying.
We haven't had to execute it, no.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, this is your call, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to
Yep,
move on,
and-
get your decision and move on to the next item, please.
I agree. And so as I say, we're going to bring this back up. We're going to table it until the 15th, where we'll have the discussion again. We'll be able to look at the numbers, the statistics, and we'll go from there. Also
Chairman, you'll have-
listening to Chatham Health.
Point of order, you'll have to vote to table it.
We have a motion on the floor to table it. All in favor? John?
No,
Gail?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And myself, aye. Okay. Any other town business or old business? The new business. This is the, I don't know, Andy, do you want to describe this?
Yes, this is the tax abatement. It comes in front of you every year. Consider an ordinance, chapter 320, article 12, abatement deferral for property taxes for persons of limited income. It's an annual interest rate review. And I'll leave it up to the selectmen to finish that. We're recommending that you continue with the 1.5, but it's up to the board to decide if they want to change that interest rate.
Okay, so I'll read the
Mr.
resolution.
Chairman? Oh,
What's
okay,
that?
read the resolution and then I have a comment on
Okay.
that.
Okay, be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen, excuse me, I'll start over. Be it resolved by the Hebron Board of Selectmen that the tax abatement interest rate remain at 1.5%. And I'll leave it at that. Opening it up for discussion. Go ahead, Gail.
Having been the liaison to the senior center. I know many people down there who use this. They want to stay in their homes. They can't pay the taxes. What this does, it allows them to defer the taxes. The town does not lose a penny on it. When the house is sold, the town gets reimbursed out of the proceeds, or when the person is deceased. So I strongly support this.
And I believe it's been at this for a number of years, to be honest.
Yeah, we went to 1.5 a few years back.
We lowered it at one point, yeah.
Hmm.
We lowered it to 1.5% last year in light of the
Oh,
COVID.
last year.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
For that, it was at 3% and it varied over the years.
Donna, what's the lowest, is this the lowest it's ever been?
Yes.
Is there an amount that it's not, it hurts the town in terms of like the percentage? Like, could we go lower? I'm just wondering, could we go lower? Does it matter?
We
Mr.
recoup,
Chairman?
we recoup all of our money. We could go lower. We might see more applicants if we go lower.
So this is a comfortable level. Okay, I just wanted the perspective on it. And I remember this from earlier votes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as I recall, we dropped it from 3% or 3.5% to 1.5% to reflect inflation. And I think inflation last year was about 1.8, but so I think this is a good number for anybody.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, hearing none. Motion is on the floor. I'll read it again. Be it resolved, what the heck is going on? Be it resolved by the Hebron Board of Selectmen that the tax abatement interest rate remain at 1.5%. All in favor? John?
John Collins, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And myself, Dan Larson, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Our next is the Fair Housing Resolution. Again, Andy? You're on mute.
I apologize. April is the Fair Housing Month. This is an adoption of a fair housing resolution as a recipient of a prior small cities grant funding for the town of Hebron. Has an ongoing obligation to support fair housing and equitable opportunity. It is in the state of Connecticut's Department of Housing program requirement that Hebron actively evident its commitment to the attached resolution, should it be adopted, reaffirm the town's commitment to fair housing. And then there's the letter behind it. This was in the packet.
Correct. And I guess we need to read this.
Yes.
Fair Housing Resolution, Town of Hebron. Whereas all persons are afforded a right to full and equal housing opportunities in the neighborhood of their choice, and whereas federal fair housing laws require that all individuals, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin, be given equal access to all housing related opportunities, including rental and ownership opportunities, and be allowed to make free choices regarding housing location. And whereas Connecticut fair housing laws require that all individuals, regardless of race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, marital status, age, lawful source of income, familial, thank you, status, learning disability, physical or mental disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression be given equal access to all housing-related opportunities, including rental and income ownership opportunities, and be allowed to make free choices regarding housing location. And whereas the town of Hebron is committed to upholding these laws and realizes that these laws must be supplemented by an affirmative action or statement policy endorsing the right to all people to full and equal housing opportunities in the neighborhood of their choice. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Hebron hereby endorses a fair housing policy to ensure equal opportunity for all persons to rent, purchase, obtain financing, and enjoy all other housing-related services of their choice on a non-discretionary basis as provided by state and federal law. And be it further resolved that the chief executive officer of the town of Hebron or his or her designated representative is responsible for responding to and assisting any person who alleges to be the victim of an illegal discriminatory housing practice in the town of Hebron, and for advising such persons of the right to file a complaint with the state of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, or the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or to seek assistance from the Connecticut Fair Housing Center, legal services, or other fair housing organizations to protect his or her right to equal housing opportunities. And this was adopted by the Hebron Board of Selectmen on April 1st, 2021. Is there any more on that, or is that? So that's the resolution. Comments? Questions? Otherwise, call for a vote. Hearing none, all in favor? John?
John Collins, aye.
Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And myself, Daniel Larson, aye. The fiscal year 2021, 2022 budget communications. This is again something we discuss every year. The budget transmittal and summary has been sent to the Board of Finance, but it's our thing. This is what was sent over. It's our discussion on the explanatory texts and whether or not we want to do ballot questions. In the past, I don't know. Well, I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen authorize the explanatory text flyer be prepared and distributed for the fiscal year 2021, 2022 budget referendum. You can see, or if she scrolls down, we can see what's been done in the past. And that's just, the dollars and cents. This is the graph that's been done in the past.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
for a little explanation, the reason this is in here, it is still time sensitive, but that's not trying to rush anybody on a vote. The charter used to require budget ballot questions. They no longer do that. So I'm not sure if that's something you still want to do. That's your prerogative. I don't think you need them, but that's your decision. So what we're hoping for tonight is to get approval to send out the flyer with the pie chart and the information as we do in past years in order to get that done in a timely fashion. So we were looking for approval of that, but if you guys want to add budgetary ballot questions and stuff, that's your prerogative.
Well, I think, I don't know, and I'll leave it up to the board, but I think we ought to at least discuss them. And what I would like to know, and I'm not sure, I know Gail's been involved with this, have they served their purpose to give us information as to what people thought, or was it a futile effort?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
the reason that the charter drafted was it was actually causing more confusion than letting us know what the voters felt. You couldn't, if there's a question and everyone says, okay, that portion of the budget is fine, but it only lets you say you like it or you don't like it. It doesn't let you go into a middle ground. So there's been a lot of questions at the polling place. I don't see any reason to put them back on. When we did it, it was to obtain information and it did not serve that purpose.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, Peter Gasper, I agree with Gail. I think the limited ability for us to structure them in a way that can get real information makes them relatively useless. I've seen them in the past, and I read them, I don't even know how to answer them. So I think that's it. Just it doesn't give us the right format to gather pertinent information. So unless the formatting changes, I'm not sure what we can get a lot of really germane information out of this.
Okay, thank you very much. If
Yeah,
I
there's
remember right, we were really tied down as to how we could word questions also.
Mr. Chairman, there's a difference between ballot question and advisory questions. So I just want to make sure you're.
Okay.
What are we considering then? Ballot question? We're not considering advisory questions then. It's just the ballot questions, Andy?
Right, budget ballot questions, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because advisory questions, we need a big old fat eraser on those. But
Right,
just
the
the
ballot
ballot
questions we have to have. Okay.
No, we don't have to have them, right? Didn't Andy say we don't have to have ballot questions? That's the question, right? Do we have them or no?
Yeah, you just the regular budget questions themselves.
So the issue here is that the system only allows binary yes or no answers, right? That's the question.
Correct, John.
Yeah. So the advisory questions, everybody always says, a lot of people just want to say it's the right a number. So the advisory questions, the way they're set up right now, are not good. They're not helpful. But it begs the question why we can't get a system that allows more than yes or no answers, because it would be helpful actually if we could have too high, just right, too low.
If the state would only tell us that.
Yeah, this is requirements from the state, and and I will go on my horse again like I do every year. I think the way the state mandates that this whole budget process gets worded is wrong. And I'll probably say it for the next X, Y, Z number of years, because within our budget, all expenses are part of that number. My thing has always been, well, what if Ram's budget doesn't pass, but Hebron's does? That dollar amount's already in Hebron's numbers. And, the Board of Finance adjusts it down, whatever. But that is the way the state says we have to do it. So I have issues with that, but I will never win on it. So I accept it as is. So what I'm basically hearing then is to not do the advisory questions.
The recommendation would be explanatory text flyer like we always do, send it out with the pertinent information to the residents. But at this time and after the charter change, I don't feel we need to do budget ballot questions, but that's a recommendation. You guys decide.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could put in the advisory a comment to people that if they want to comment to the Board of Selectmen about the budget, we are seeking their input and give an email address.
Well, the thing is, when this goes out, this is what's going to the voters. You know,
Yeah.
people need to be making these comments now. Like I noticed that we had we were sent copies of letters.
It's on there. It states that on the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go back to the top, because I think John makes a good point. I mean, we are interested in as much input as possible, so that you say any of that says it on the top?
Yeah, it says right there, budget email. It's on there.
Oh, I got you with the arrow. Hey, I'm getting older. I gotta lean close to see it on the screen. I didn't read that before. Okay, so budget information level. But John, are you saying that would you like that text change to direct people to the boards or the Board of Finance or the board? You think that would be helpful? Or you think they know that by doing this, it gets to the appropriate board?
No, I think I was corrected. It was a dumb idea.
No, it's not a dumb idea.
I think we
It's
just
not a dumb idea. It's you know, at this point, these are the numbers that are going to be at the referendum. People need to
Right.
make comment, you know, now, you know,
Right.
and we've asked for input throughout the entire budget process.
Right.
We did receive a letter from a taxpayer. I noticed it in today's emails.
Mhm.
You know, and I would assume that will get forwarded to the proper entities, both Board of Finance and Board of Education.
It did.
You know, it's
We have to vote. We have to vote on this resolution.
Yes.
We want direction on moving forward with the explanatory text.
All right, so I'd like to call the question, Mr. Chairman. I think the resolution's clear, if I may.
yes.
And just make sure, I want to make sure everyone is clear. You're not voting on exactly, this is last year's. We're showing you what we plan on doing the same thing with the corrected information.
Okay.
You're not voting on that exact document.
So what I would say, and again, I'm going to ask for assistance, but be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen authorize the explanatory text flyer be prepared and distributed for the fiscal year 2021, 2022 budget referendum, and without the.
You could just leave it. You could just leave it like that.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to say anything about not putting in the.
Nope.
The questions. Okay. I just want to get that clarification. Everybody understand? Assuming the answer is that everybody understands, all in favor of the resolution, John,
John Collins, aye.
Gail,
Gail Richmond, I.
Mark,
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter,
Peter Casper, aye.
and myself, Daniel Larson, aye. Thank you. We have our draft agenda for the pushing the time frame, the April 15th, 2021 meeting. Again, anybody that will have to add on the under old business, the COVID long-term recovery.
Emergency powers.
Emergency powers, yes, thank you. So that'll get added onto the old business. Anybody again, know what the process is for that?
Can I put,
Yes, sir.
can I put on new business just a review of the town charters, chapter 11 ethics section? Just so that we know that we're following it, conflict of, especially section 1104.
Body? Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, let's review the policy.
Okay.
Well, that's my opinion.
Gail
Fine, add it.
and Mark?
No comment.
Sure. We'll add it.
Mr. Chair, I think months ago, if you're done with that subject, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Months ago, I've gotten a couple questions regarding the social injustice. I think that was supposed to come back to the board in February. I'm not sure if they're ready or if you want to add that to an agenda, but I think, it's now April, that'll be April 15th, or at least an update.
I would think that would be a wise thing, since that was supposed to be finalized in February.
Yes, thank you. We're gonna be meeting on Tuesday.
Father Ron from St. Peter's has asked some questions regarding that, just to be clear.
Oh, good.
Yeah, wants to be involved.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so any other new business? We know what the process is. The consent agenda. These are items that are considered to be routine in nature, which the board may or may not need to discuss individually and may be voted on as a group. Any board member who wishes to discuss a particular item in this section may request the chair to remove it for further discussion and a separate vote if necessary. This one here, we have two, the March 9th, 2021 regular meeting budget workshop minutes and the March 16th regular meeting budget workshop minutes, and then tax refunds as listed. Does anybody have reason to separate these out? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
should we wait until we review conflict of interest rules before we approve? Because conflict of interest rules may require that we put in items into the minutes.
These minutes have already been recorded. You really can't change the minutes that you're voting on.
Oh, no, you can. Yes, you can.
If it wasn't part of the action of that meeting, it can't be added afterwards.
Yes, you
be
can.
corrected.
The Robert's Rules of Order allows you not only to change the minutes of a closed meeting, but that you can change the minutes of minutes that have been approved in past meetings.
We can get an opinion on that, but it was my understanding it's a reflection of the meeting that was taking place, and that's what the minutes are for. But I don't want to be the authority on that. I'll concede.
Well, let me just put it.
Chairman.
If the town charter requires that.
What do you mean change? You can't change something you already did. Maybe you want to add something to it. How can you change something you've already done?
No, you would add what the town
Well,
charter.
you said change, so say add.
I stand corrected. Absolutely. You would add, absolutely.
And that can be done if actions are deemed appropriate at our next meeting, that we have to add something to these minutes. But the minutes are a representation of what was done at the meeting. And that, unless someone wants to change something that they feel was not done at these meetings that need correction.
I'm just trying to follow the town charter, and if you approve them and we're following Robert's Rules of Order, then I think the process is going to be different, but it's going to be more complicated. But if you want to approve the minutes, go right ahead.
I think we would approve them if something needs to be changed. The minutes are still the minutes. If what you're saying is that we acted improperly, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in the minutes, if there are conflicts of interest in the board members, they have to be noted in the minutes. That's all it says.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I understand John's point, but I think we need to, at the next meeting, as one of you said, decide that that's what the charter says, and that's what we need to do. But these minutes right now were a reflection of what was taken and recorded at the time, and the any potential conflict of interest on one of our that one of us engaged in would not be noted because we didn't do it at the time. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And that's how I'm taking it. If something has to be mentioned, it would be in our next set of minutes. If there were corrections or something that needed to be addressed back to these,
Yeah.
that would be in that set of minutes. You
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be changing these minutes. There would be something that would go back. So that's kind of how I'm taking it. These are what was done. And if something comes up out of the charter that needs to be addressed, that would be in that next set of minutes. So I think that these can be approved or not approved, based as, if anybody has any changes of them, corrections of them. So with that being said, move the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the following consent agenda items and motions contained therein as if individually adopted. And it would be the March 19th, 2021 regular meeting budget workshop, the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting budget workshop, and the tax refunds as listed. John?
No. Yes, no.
Okay. Gail?
Gail Richmond, aye.
Peter, or Mark?
Mark Rivera, aye.
Peter?
Peter Casper, aye.
And myself, Dan Larson, aye. Next would be the liaisons, and going down the list, Mark?
Well, as Andy stated earlier, RAM went back full-time on Monday. Traffic is horrendous. It's, I don't know if there's any solution how we deal with it, but we're doing the best we can. And there's a lot of adjustments to make, and it's frustrating for everybody, but I think we're gonna make it through it. It's a difficult time, and there's a lot of opinions that are for going back, not for going back. It's kind of a difficult time, but everybody's doing the best they can. The board moved along smoothly on all of their budget talks, and the board is very supportive of the superintendent, and they came in with a good budget.
Mark,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you talking about the traffic, like what are the challenging areas? Is it just congestion? 'Cause I don't go there very much, and I dropped my daughter off the other day at school. You were doing a great job, by the way. I'm just letting you know. But what are the day-to-day challenges? Is it a block of time, that just everything backs up, or do you think there's a safety issue, or what are the challenges? I just like to have more information on that.
So at dismissal and at the beginning of school, because a lot of parents still want to bring their children to school by car, there's twice as many cars trying to come into RAM, and it's just not designed to handle that kind of traffic. Also, all the seniors are driving now. The juniors have just gotten their license. So now we have all the young people driving to school. There's no parking spots left at RAM. So we're parking across the street at Vets Park. So now the kids have to cross the street. Thank God for the new crosswalk over there and the sidewalks. It just takes a lot of time to get everybody in and out. People's patience is being tested, and not everybody's courteous, and people are in a hurry and want to circumvent following the correct rules for coming in and out. So, and there's a lot of people that are going along with the program and understand, but it's kind of, people are really getting frustrated. The kids are frustrated. They can't even get out of the senior lot at the end of the day because the parents have blocked Wall Street And the
Yeah, my
middle
son
school,
complains about that. He says he puts the car in park and just has to wait, get out. So I'm
my
just,
stepson said the same thing. He was so stressed out. He said, I'm just going to sit in my parking spot until everybody goes, and I'm going to drive away. And the middle school is all clogged up too. So
okay. Thank you.
you're welcome, Pete.
Vehicles at schools just continue to be a major issue. And it's both the high schools, the junior high, the elementary school. That's why we have to have an officer out in front of Hebron.
It's ridiculous.
It seems like there's got to be some sort of a resolution. We're spending huge monies for buses, and what's the percentage of bus fill coming into the schools per day? Any idea?
But I can only speak kind of anecdotally, but just looking at the buses, when we were on hybrid, there was maybe 6 kids on the bus. Now there's more kids, but it's not a full bus. And we've discussed this before many times. I'm not sure you can mandate that a kid rides the bus. So it's difficult. People are free to get in and out of there the way they want, but it's certainly not designed to handle all that traffic, Dan. Even with the new construction, and especially with COVID, we're not designed or equipped to handle that kind of traffic flow.
And it's continuing on because we're going to be redoing the intersection of 316 and 66 eventually.
That will help. Because believe it or not, Dan, at dismissal, it backs up all the way from Route 66 up Wall Street past the 2 entrances because nobody can go left or right there. And that creates a huge problem. And we were thinking about even putting an officer down there to run the light manually to try to get some of the congestion out. But we already have 2 of us at the school. And then, like you said, we have the other ones up at Hebron. So it's like we're using the whole police force to direct traffic.
And I'm sure that Hebron is not alone in this problem.
I would guess that. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to other school resource officers about their traffic problems.
It would be interesting to know what other towns, if they have similar issues. Of course, Hebron, because we have, all 3 towns or populations from all 3 towns exiting Hebron, we have probably the worst traffic congestion.
I would think so. I talked to the Colchester SRO, the Bacon, and obviously it's a tougher time of the day, but I don't think they have the problems that we have. There's 1,400, 1,300 maybe now kids in the school. It's coming in from 85, coming in from Wall Street. You can only go one way this way. You can only go out that way. There's not enough parking spots in the parking lot. I don't know what the solution. We don't really know what the solution is. We're just trying to make the best of it that we can, Dan.
Thank you. Gail.
All right, the senior center. In the past, I have mentioned that the zero isolation clinic, which a professor down at Yale started, was at the staff at the senior center were attending the classes. They got certified. So they're now looking for 6 to 8 volunteers to participate in the program. It's a 6-week program that will meet once a week. The only thing is participants must have internet access. And the purpose is to how social isolation can negatively impact your health. So they're hoping to get the people in and get the program off to a good start. So anyone interested should call the Senior Center at 860-228-1010 1700. The Douglas Library, Poet Laureate was a topic for a while. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to get that off the ground. But it was requested that anybody that likes to write poetry, submit it to the library to be included in the newsletter. So I was pleased to see that we've gotten 3 poems in, and at least one, if not more, will be put in the next newsletter, depending on what room there is in the letter. And the Board of Trustees next meet on April 12th. I have no news from the Board of Ed, as they haven't met since we last met. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Next down is Peter.
Okay, Board of Finance, obviously, right in the middle of the budget season, so we don't need to talk, I don't need to provide any more information on that. Parks and Rec Commission did meet since our last meeting, and just a few highlights from the meeting. The Girl Scout project was proposed and approved to begin a garden project at Gilead Hill School, the Girl Scouts equivalent of an Eagle Scout designation. So that was very impressive to see our young people continuing to step forward and give back to their community. So a nice presentation done, and a project that's going to get started shortly. That will be ongoing and supportive of the kids, and that discussed a lot of discussion around expanding Hebron Day. Some mixed reactions around that. A person was brought in that has done, as an outside vendor to bring in some additional food trucks and vendors and other things to try to expand Hebron Day. So there was a lot of dialogue around that, not consensus reached, but just some good dialogue around that. There's some grant money that's going to be improving Betts Field regarding softball. So that's a 2-year project, but that looks like that's moving forward to enhance the fields there, bring in some fencing and some other updates. The rec program update, prep still very low, and obviously that's a revenue generator, so still very low, and a lot of discussions around expanding summer camps, but still within the context of state restrictions. So that was an ongoing dialogue, and they had a committee update trying to expand basketball, maybe to do a little bit more with Andover, get more of a regional approach, another attempt at a broader regional approach. So just continued discussion on the ongoing dialogue around the forest management plan and different constituents providing perspectives on that. So they spent a little bit of time continuing to keep that dialogue fresh. Conducting interviews for Rich's job will begin in May. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. John.
Yeah, we will meet on Tuesday, and we'll get the recommendations to the board for the Racial Justice and Equity Committee. You know what I want to do? I want to shout out to Gino Ariema and the women's basketball team at UConn. What a game at Baylor. What a win. And what a team. Thank you so much. You guys are doing great. Good luck tomorrow in Arizona. And consider a triangle and 2 against them. Anyways, I thought I'd say that. Thanks.
Okay. And myself, the only thing I have is the fire department will be having the Easter plant sale Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So stop by. They've got a bunch of beautiful fresh plants for your families, for yourselves, for your loved ones. So please stop by and support the volunteers and their efforts for their plant sale. Other than that, that's all I have. Open it back up for public comment. If Donna has anyone.
Mel Lecter would like to make a public comment.
Yes, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Donna. I had the opportunity to review the transmittal of the budget earlier today, and everything looks to be in order. I want to thank all of the Board of Selectmen and town staff for working as diligently as they did to get that thing done. Doing it remotely is a blessing and a curse. we get through it a little quicker, but we don't always touch all the bases. So we meet again on the 6th of April, which is Tuesday. Please stay with us. Please join us. And also there is the public hearing for the RAM budget on the 5th at 6:30 p.m. And it is online. If you go to the RAM website and look under the Board of Education special meetings, the access information is there. I think we need to voice our opinions and show some support for both the board and for superintendent, who, in my opinion, has done a terrific job. Couple of questions I had was who, and you started to talk about it, who will respond to that letter? I think there was a lot, the letter that was received today, I'm sorry, from the gentleman in town. I think there were several inaccurate findings in there or statements in there.
Yes, there was.
Yeah. So I'll send my responses to the individual questions to everyone, and whomever it seems to be appropriate, we can agree, and maybe we can put that on our the Board of Finance agenda for the 6th, just to get that behind it. I mean, somebody took the time to make a statement. I think we owe them the respect of a response, a factual response. I say the Board of Selectmen, I think John and Mark headed up a group that did a survey, and I remember taking it probably 8 to 10 weeks ago now. Was wondering if the results have been tallied and when they'll be available. And the last thing I have to say is just to make a general comment about these meetings since the first of the year. I guess the kindest thing I can say is that they're an embarrassment. We are better than the behavior that's been at that meeting, at these meetings. We're discussing things. You're discussing things, and people are getting involved, like me, who shouldn't be involved, in things that shouldn't be discussed. There's no room for accusations. Anything that's said should be based on facts and available facts. Feelings need to be left out. As far as I can see, we're getting so close to libel and slander in many cases that costs the town some money. I had a call, or actually an email and then a call from a former town official, who reminded me how the Board of Finance was viewed in the previous, not the last update to the charter. And I'm sure Gail remembers the issue that was brought up, that maybe we should dissolve, get rid of the Board of Finance because they're non-functional or not functioning properly. We couldn't get quorum, things like that. Well, this person made the comment, looks like the tables are reversed now. I don't agree with that. I would recommend that you concentrate. Even tonight, we had several items that came up that really weren't on the agenda. You can twist anything and say it's part of the discussion, but they weren't on the agenda. And I would hope that, and it's a big job for Dan, especially when he's part of the discussion, to see that. And I would hope, that Dan continues to maintain decorum in the meeting, and I would encourage other members of the board, if something's on a runaway that's not on the agenda, to please make a point of order and move on. These meetings have taken a lot more time because of the nonsensical discussions that have been had. And I'm all for trying to help change this, because I think all individually, you guys are terrific. I think you're the right people to be in the offices, and we just need to be able to separate emotions, feelings, and from facts and what's on the agenda. And I've talked for long enough, so thank you for your gracious willingness to hear me. I apologize for getting a little bit riled up tonight, but again, truth needs to be in these meetings. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chairman, to answer the question, I'm compiling the survey, and it will be presented next with the Racial Justice and Equity Committee findings in the next meeting. But let me just speak to that point. Dissent is very difficult in this town. It's very difficult to be critical of the town government, and I am. I've been here 4 years, and I'm critical. And it's not personal. I don't really care about the personalities. It is about this government. It is about democracy. It's about, this Board of Selectmen as an institution and how it's treated, and also what its responsibilities are. And I hope people don't take it as personal. Town manager has jobs and responsibilities, and if I'm critical of him, it's the only time I can do that is in this meeting because of FOIA. And I think it's an important part of this. I think an opposition party that is critical of the majority party actually provides a service, because there's a lot of people that have reached out to me that agree with me. So any efforts to squelch dissent, okay, right, okay. It's very difficult. Let me just put it this way. It's very difficult to be the only person that's critical here. And there's a lot to criticize. You ask me.
Okay.
Again, I understand that. All I'm saying is, and criticize all you want, but do it with respect. And that's not what I'm seeing here. It's not being respect. And that's really the end of it.
Okay. I thank everybody. I thank everybody very much. Rather than this, again, I think it's time to move on at this point. I thank everybody very, very much. I wish everyone a great day tomorrow for those people who have it off, and that's for the rest of us who have to work. But have a great Easter, and thank you all, and we'll see you next week. Thank you
All
very much.
right, I'll make the motion that we adjourn at 8:53.
Thank you. Good night.
Before you run,